When my parents first sat me down to watch Luke Skywalker do the impossible by blowing up the Galactic Empire's Death Star terror weapon, all I ever wanted to do after was fly an X-Wing starfighter. Star Wars would go on to play a major role in my life, and I latched on to Lucasfilm's fleet of ships and starfighters with the same level of enthusiasm as a rail fan salivating over the sight of a diesel locomotive. This love affair with fictional spaceships was buoyed by space combat games like Wing Commander and, of course, X-Wing. I would spend hours playing and replaying these games because it was the ultimate wish fulfillment, the closest I'd ever get to feeling like Luke Skywalker. The glory days of the Star Wars space combat genre are sadly long gone, but every so often I return to X-Wing Alliance, the final game in the X-Wing series, whenever I needed the thrill of engaging TIE fighters in deep space. It's since been about 20 years, and now Motive Montreal has revived the Star Wars space combat experience with Star Wars Squadrons, a budget title published by EA. Much like how I felt with Jedi Fallen Order, it bugs me that it took 7 years after EA got the license to make something like this. I've already spoken about my attitude over EA's mishandling of the license, so I'm not going to mention it further. After all, I don't want that to tarnish my attitude towards one of the most personally fulfilling Star Wars games since Battlefront 2015's Rogue One VR mission. Star Wars Squadrons is not a repackaged edition of Battlefront 2's ship-to-ship combat. There is so much more to the simulation of flight than star cards and hero ships that are designed to dramatically shift the balance of skirmishes. The key to victory here is learning how to adapt to different situations by managing your craft's subsystems and play to their unique strengths. The starfighters of the Imperial Navy and New Republic are equipped with mechanisms that let you adjust the balance of power across weapons, engines, and shields. Power management accounts for more than half of the in-flight experience, as you're constantly assigning boosts to one system over another when it's necessary to evade pursuing ships or gain additional protection for bombing runs. Putting full power to engines, for example, increases the ship's top speed and unlocks a boost that can be used to drift into sharp turns designed to help you shake off pursuers. Imperial fighters lack shields and instead employ power converters that trigger boosts to one system at the expense of another. Shifting resources around on the fly may seem like a needless way to complicate Battlefront's method of ship combat, but I'm a huge fan of it because it puts more control and interactivity in the player's hands. Throw in customization options and cosmetics purchased with in-game currency, and you end up with a really cool, well-structured flight experience that's easily playable on the PlayStation 4 without a flight stick, although you can use one. For Squadrons, Motive created a modest single-player campaign that, like Call of Duty, serves as a primer for the online portion of the game. Beginning with a tutorial set during the aftermath of Alderaan's destruction, your squadron of TIE fighters under the leadership of Captain Lyndon Javes is sent out to sniff out a rebel colony hiding out in a trading outpost. The convoy is eventually discovered, but the attack is foiled by Javes, who becomes another in a long line of Imperial officers defecting to the Rebel Alliance. The story then jumps ahead to the conclusion of the Battle of Endor, in which the deaths of Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader leave the Empire scrambling to fill the power vacuum. As Admiral Ray Sloan directs Imperial forces in the galaxy, Javes has taken charge of a New Republic project called Starhawk that promises to create a valuable new tool in the fight against the Imperial Remnant. You'll take part in the fight for the fate of the galaxy as a pilot for both Titan and Vanguard squadrons by shooting lasers at things until they blow up. The campaign is pretty solid, but leaves little room for character growth outside of optional conversations among your squad mates between missions. Some of these conversations are pretty engaging and provide backstory, so it's nice to see Motive get mileage out of a milieu of different personality types. Also, those who have been reading the newer Star Wars novels will recognize a lot of the story's major characters. Of the missions themselves, they fall in line with the traditional space sim centerpieces, escort, raids, and defense missions that benefit from really cool level design. My personal favorite is Essel's, which is home to an Imperial listening post that has plenty of trenches and internal pathways to fly in and out of. Once the story ends, you're free to replay it to earn all mission-based medals or test your mettle online. Multiplayer offers two game types, dogfight and fleet battles. Dogfight is a simple 5-on-5 deathmatch mode where the goal for each side is to score 30 kills. As far as deathmatch gameplay is concerned, it's no fuss, no muss. Fleet battles, however, is Squadron's bread and butter. It plays like an elaborate version of tug of war as both sides try to boost morale to push the front line closer to the opponent's capital ship. The match is built in 3 phases, the first being a dogfight skirmish against named players and AI pilots that reward points toward your side's morale for each kill. When one side wins the dogfight, the battle moves to an assault on the opponent's pair of cruisers. After those are destroyed, the team must make a final assault on the capital ship, a prolonged battle that involves targeting different systems and firing at visible weak spots. Taking the fight to the other team's capital ship is never a straightforward affair, because the morale system ensures that either side can't easily steamroll their opponents. Kills always earn points, no matter what phase of the fight you find yourself in, and you can always expect the tide to turn against you at the drop of a hat, forcing the other team to fall back and defend their own vessels. When the match ends, players are rewarded with experience points based on their actions that feed into a standard progression system that rewards glory and component currency at each rank up. These can then be spent to purchase exterior and interior ship cosmetics and unlock ship components that provide new primary and secondary weapon options, as well as engine, shield, and hull variants. Star Wars Squadrons is best enjoyed with friends. I had the good fortune to play several dogfights and fleet battles with 4 of my friends, and the experience was something right out of my childhood dreams. I had many personal thrills as I coordinated attacks and helped shake pursuers through a ping system that makes it easy to identify attackers. Communication is important, especially when making attack runs against capital ships, and doing all of this with my Star Wars loving peers has been one of the greatest multiplayer experiences since Star Trek Bridge Crew. Plus, it's easier to coordinate each person's role during a match because the ships and squadrons fall in line with familiar multiplayer classes. X-Wings and TIE Fighters are the standard workhorses of the fleet, while A-Wings and TIE Interceptors are best used for getting in some quick hits and scooting away at great speed. Y-Wings and TIE Bombers function as a heavy class that benefit from destructive firepower, and the U-Wing and the TIE Reaper operate as a support class, as they can repair busted ships and replenish spent ordnance. You can switch ships after you're shot down in dogfight, but in fleet battles, you're free to change on the fly and address the flow of battle by dropping into your capital ship's hangar. Because Motive Montreal is an EA studio, they benefit from the publisher's ownership of the Star Wars license and the production values that come with it. Squadrons is a really pretty game that oozes all of the Lucasfilm visual and audio flourishes that money can license. Played entirely from the first-person perspective, there's a lot of attention to detail paid to the cockpits on both the Imperial and New Republic navies. However, if you want the best Star Wars Squadrons experience, then you're gonna want to pick up a PlayStation VR headset. My time with Squadrons was spent exclusively with VR, and I will not imagine playing without it. I've come closer now than ever before to realizing my fantasy of being Luke thanks to Squadrons VR support. Not only is it spectacularly cool to sit in a fully realized virtual cockpit of an X-Wing fighter, but the one-to-one head tracking afforded by the headset makes it easier to keep a bead on enemy ships. Also, it gives a great sensation of flight as you zip around maps loaded with debris or working space stations. I always felt completely exhilarated after performing tight rolls and turns as I bobbed and weaved against debris and other pieces of cover to avoid laser fire and missile tracking. Star Wars Squadrons is the killer app for the PlayStation VR, and it's a real shame that it didn't come out sooner. All things considered, this is likely to be a contender for the best use of the Star Wars license. There's a nice simplicity to the game that comes as a result of EA learning some hard lessons about online games. Like Jedi Fallen Order, it is free from microtransactions and other annoying hooks that come with games as a service title. It does have a few hitches that are worth addressing, though they appear more in the campaign than in multiplayer. The story mode has a decent amount of bugs. Chief among them are infinite load screens that cannot be bypassed without closing the software. I also ran into situations where the game didn't register that I destroyed targets even though their hulls were little more than smoldering wrecks, which meant I missed out on earning accolades for completing secondary objectives. The other issues I experienced were the occasional AI quirks, as ships would sometimes stop dead in front of mission-critical targets or allow themselves to crash into things from time to time. The loading issue was by far the most annoying, and I wasn't too pleased with having to restart a difficult mission because of it. Worth pointing out to my VR-enabled readers is that the visuals do take a hit when the game is played with the PSVR headset. It's still immensely playable, but a lot of the finer details are lost, which, to be honest, PSV owners should be used to that by now. Star Wars Squadrons is sturdy, easy on the eyes, and looks amazing in a firefight. Being released so late in the console's lifecycle, I worry that it'll get lost in the shuffle even if it is playable on the PlayStation 5. I'm concerned that EA has indicated no plans to create any post-DLC, leaving the game as is without new maps or ships. I do see the irony here, asking EA to nickel and dime me when I've been against it in the past, but this is the only Star Wars game I feel comfortable really pumping money into. What you get in the box is just enough for a $40 game, but without new maps or new ships, I'm concerned that it won't thrive beyond a small, dedicated user base. The Star Wars property is far too vast to let Squadrons die on the vine, so I hope it does well enough for the publisher to reconsider their decision. Whatever its fate, I can truly say that my pop-cultured life has been leading up to Star Wars Squadrons. Nearly 40 years spent fantasizing of piloting Republic fighters against Imperial forces has been so beautifully realized by Motive's efforts. The campaign has a few bothersome technical problems, but playing the game with friends online and watching them engage targets in the middle of an assault on a Star Destroyer has brought life to my inner child. Dark Station gives Star Wars Squadrons for the PlayStation 4 4 stars.